So there's this guy named Kim Dokja. On paper, he's painfully normal. Late 20s, graduated from a forgettable college, stuck working as a contract employee at a large company. No big achievements, no exciting social life. Nothing about him stands out, except one thing. For 10 straight years, Kim Dokja has been obsessively reading a web novel called 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. Every update, every chapter, over 3,000 episodes. Nobody else cared about it. No hype, no fandom, no popularity. By the end, there was only one reader left. Him. To Dokja, this story wasn't just entertainment. It was his emotional support apocalypse novel. He read it while being bullied in school, while failing entrance exams, during military service, and later while drifting between unstable jobs as an adult. His real life was bleak. The novel was the one thing that never abandoned him. He couldn't even afford to donate to the author, so all he could do was leave comments, basically whispering thank you into the void for 10 years straight. One night, on his usual subway ride home, the final episode drops. The ending is strange. It says there are 3 ways to survive the apocalypse. Everything is fading, and if you're reading this, you'll survive. That's it. No explanations, no closure. And the moment Dokja finishes reading, his very normal life begins lining up to become not normal at all. Before reality fully collapses, we get a better look at Dokja as a person. Even his name is ironic. Dokja can mean reader, individualist, or only child. Most people assume it means only child, which is true, but that wasn't the intention. His father named him, hoping he'd grow into someone strong and independent. Instead, Dokja just became very good at being alone, professionally alone. On that same subway ride, he runs into Yu Sanga, an assistant manager from his company's HR department. She's smart, popular, and well-liked. Basically from a completely different universe than him. Dokja instantly becomes awkward, because of course he does. She smells nice, she's friendly, and she's the kind of person everyone likes without trying. They make polite conversation, and he finds out she's on the subway because her bike was stolen. She casually mentions she bikes to work for exercise and for personal reasons. She doesn't elaborate, which somehow makes her sound even cooler. At one point, she randomly practices Spanish out loud and then explains she just said, "Please lend me some money." Dokja finds this impressive and deeply confusing. Turns out she studies languages in her free time. Meanwhile, Dokja studies fictional apocalypses written by an author nobody's heard of. Naturally, she asks what he's reading. Dokja panics internally and half-lies that he's studying Korean, because explaining a niche web novel with over 3,000 chapters that only he reads feels like social suicide. Sanga lights up and starts talking about novels she loves, casually dropping authors like Murakami and Raymond Carver. Dokja nods along, fully aware they are not reading the same kind of novels. When she asks who his favorite author is, he dodges the question entirely, because saying the author of an obscure web novel with one reader feels like a cry for help. As she talks, Dokja drifts into his thoughts. He realizes something devastating. He doesn't have any happy memories, just long stretches of endurance. And now, the one thing that carried him through all of it has ended. The story started with over 1,000 readers and slowly lost them all until it was written for only one person, him. Sanga snaps him back to reality by calling his name. They talk about work, about how fast time passed, and about their contracts almost being over. That's when Dokja remembers she was promoted to full-time last month. He congratulates her late. She shrugs it off, saying her evaluation isn't even finished yet. But in Dokja's mind, the contrast is brutal. She improved herself and moved forward. He escaped into fiction. If life were a novel, Sanga would be the heroine. Dokja would be a background character, the reader, not the protagonist. She even offers to share the app she uses to study languages. For a brief moment, Dokja wonders if his life were a different genre. Could things have turned out differently? Then reality kicks back in. He politely declines, because he knows it wouldn't change anything. His life isn't a story with sudden self-improvement montages. He's not the hero. He's the reader. That's who he's always been. He tells Sanga he needs to live his own life. It surprises her, but she takes it seriously. She declares she'll live her life to the fullest too. She's inspired. Dokja is just relieved the conversation ends there. Then his phone buzzes. A single message, "Thank you." It stops him cold. He replies, half joking, half hopeful, and yes, it's actually the author of 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, the real one. The author tells him the series only reached the end because Dokja kept reading and commenting. Casual emotional damage. Then comes another message. The novel once won a contest, and starting today, the epilogue would transition into paid content. As a thank you, the author offers Dokja a present and asks for his email. Dokja immediately imagines something practical, like a gift card. Groceries would be nice. Another message arrives instantly. He opens it. Instead of money, he gets a goodbye. At exactly 7 p.m., the novel would become paid content. The message ends with one vague line. "This will help you." No explanation, no attachment. Dokja checks the time. 6:55 p.m. 5 minutes left. He rushes to his favorites list to reread the novel. It's gone, completely erased. Then the train suddenly shuts down. Lights out. The floor begins to shake. People start yelling. Someone screams, "Terrorist attack." Someone else just screams. The train slams to a stop. Chaos spreads instantly. Dokja checks on Sunga. She's shaken but okay. He tries to calm her down, sounding far more composed than he feels, because deep down, he knows this isn't a normal delay. Then the clock hits 7 p.m., and something irreversible clicks into place. The speakers crackle, not with emergency instructions, but with a cheerful voice. It announces that the free service of the 8,612 planetary system has ended, and that the main scenario will now begin. That's when it hits Dokja. His quiet, ordinary life has just switched genres. Someone in the crowd suddenly shouts that the thing appearing in front of them is a dokebi, a goblin-like creature from Korean folklore. The word lands in Dokja's chest like a punch. The train being stopped isn't unusual, sure, but this moment, this exact setup, feels wrong in a way he knows far too well. A line from 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse starts replaying in his head, and that's when the panic really sets in. A strange glow spreads from the train's gate, soft but deeply unsettling. Everyone whispers, terrified and confused. And then the creature steps out. Small horns, floating in midair. Not human, not a costume, exactly like the novel described. The thing starts speaking, but in a language no one understands. People freak out. Some think it's advanced AR. Others are just disgusted. Nobody knows what they're looking at, except Dokja. He knows exactly what it is. This is the Dokebi from the opening of TWSA, the same being that kicked off thousands of chapters of suffering, death, and survival. The thing that shouldn't exist. And yet here it is, floating in front of him like it just stepped out of his phone. Sangha, bless her, tries to rationalize the situation. She wonders if it's speaking Spanish and even considers talking to it. Dokja immediately shuts that down with barely disguised sarcasm, because now is not the time to practice Duolingo in front of a supernatural goblin. The Dokebi interrupts again, apologizing for a language patch error. Very professional, very customer service coded. Then it asks if everyone can hear it now. One guy in the crowd snaps and demands to know what this is supposed to be. Some kind of movie shoot. He's late for an audition and very much not in the mood for monsters. The Dokebi laughs, literally laughs, and explains that it chose 7 p.m. on purpose because that's when there are the most customers. That word does not help. People start yelling back, demanding the train restart, complaining about consent, threatening lawsuits, the usual human response to eldritch nonsense. In the middle of all this, a child quietly asks their mom if the creature is a cartoon character. And that's when it really sinks in. This isn't a drill. This isn't a prank. This is the beginning. And Dokja, the lifelong reader, the one person who finished the story, is standing at the exact starting line of the apocalypse he thought only existed on a screen. The Dokebi tells everyone to calm down and sit, using that creepy customer service voice that somehow makes everything worse. It says it has something very important to announce, but Dokja is barely listening because his brain is already 10 steps ahead. This scene lines up perfectly with the opening of 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. Same setup, same timing, same feeling, and he knows exactly what's coming, and it's bad. So he immediately tells Sanga, very seriously, not to move. She freezes, confused, surrounded by people still yelling and panicking. Then the Dokebi's personality flips like a switch. The playful tone disappears. Its eyes glow red. It laughs, and then a man's head just explodes. No warning. Blood everywhere. Silence slams into the train as people realize this is not special effects, not a prank, not a drill. Before anyone can even scream properly, more heads start bursting, one after another. Bodies drop. Blood sprays across the floor, across seats, across people who are still alive and now very aware they might not be for long. The Dokja laughs the whole time, like this is peak entertainment. It makes it very clear this is not a dream, not a movie, and not the reality people are used to. Dokja wants to deny it, really wants to, but the floor is literally soaked in blood, and at some point denial just feels silly. The Dokja launches into a full villain monologue, mocking humans for living comfortably without paying any cost. Breathing, eating, existing, all freebies that have now been revoked. The era of free living is officially over. Everyone still standing looks like they've seen hell, because they kind of have. Then a guy steps forward, Han from the finance team. Yes, that Han. Office acquaintance turned desperate negotiator. He pulls out a stack of cash and starts offering money like his life is a very intense business transaction. Millions, whatever it wants. He's shaking, but clearly believes money can fix this, because money usually fixes things. The Dokja seems amused and even acknowledges money as a human invention, a shared agreement of value. Han gets hopeful. Bad move. The Dokja snaps its fingers and the cash bursts into flames, just gone. Han stares at the ashes like his soul just left his body. The Dokja casually explains that money means absolutely nothing outside human systems and, as a bonus, threatens Han, so no one else tries the same stunt. Han retreats immediately, confidence completely evaporated. Then things get even weirder. The Dokja starts talking about some kind of invisible debt everyone is accumulating just by existing there. Its horns extend, and it zips through the cabin at inhuman speed, leaving pure dread in its wake. An announcement follows. A channel number, BI 7623, is now active. And entities called constellations have arrived. Because of course they have. A chime sounds, and a floating screen appears in front of everyone. Dokja reads it and immediately knows this is where the real nightmare begins. Main scenario activated. Prove your value. Kill 1 or more lives, no elaboration, no exceptions, no please. The Dokja cheerfully wishes them good luck, laughs like it just launched a game show, and disappears in a flash of light. Sanga immediately does the reasonable thing and tries to call the police. No signal, no connection, nothing. She turns to Dokja, panicked, asking what they're supposed to do now that the authorities are completely useless. And this is where Dokja does something insane, but also weirdly logical. He stays calm and starts talking about a survival game. Like, conceptually. He compares this to those apocalypse simulations where only a handful of people make it through by understanding the rules. He tells her they have to treat this the same way, as a game with mechanics. Not fair, not kind, but structured. Sanga is, understandably, like, are you hearing yourself right now? But Dokja's certainty makes her hesitate. He looks around. The Dokja still hovering nearby. Blood everywhere. Dead bodies scattered across the subway floor. Office workers huddled in corners, shaking and covered in red. An elderly woman praying desperately in her seat. And that's when Dokja fully accepts it. This isn't an isolated incident. This isn't madness. This is 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, the story he read for 10 years, playing out in real life. Which means one thing. If anyone here has even a chance of surviving, it's the guy who already knows how the story starts. When Dokja is mentally bracing himself to do something, another guy jumps in and steals the spotlight. This young man steps forward with full "I'm in charge here" energy and tells everyone to calm down, stop screaming, and actually listen. Naturally, People immediately question why they should listen to him. Fair. He responds by saying this is basically a national emergency, and that panicking like this is how people get killed even faster. Very grim, very military coded. Then he flashes his badge and introduces himself as Army Lieutenant Lee Hyun-sung, currently serving in Unit 6502. That alone quiets the crowd a bit. To really drive the point home, he shows them his phone. There's an official alert declaring a level 1 national emergency. At that point, whatever hope people had left starts sweating nervously. The crowd immediately bombards him with questions. What's happening? Is the government handling this? Has he contacted higher-ups? Someone even yells about calling the president. Hyun-sung admits he doesn't have clearance to contact the Blue House directly, which does not help. Anxiety spikes instantly. Dokja, watching all of this, feels weirdly calm. The emergency declaration doesn't surprise him at all. He already knew this was how it would go. What does throw him off is Hyun-sung himself. The name hits him like a memory jump scare. This is Steelblade Hyun-sung, a supporting character from 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. Seeing him in real life is surreal enough, but there's a problem. This isn't how Hyun-sung is supposed to enter the story. In the novel, he only shows up after the first scenario ends, not during it. Dokja's brain immediately starts spiraling. Why is the timeline off? What else is different? Before he can fully unpack that, someone shouts that the Prime Minister is giving a speech. Everyone pulls out their phones at once. Sangha shows Dokja her screen, and they watch the Prime Minister address the nation. Officially, the government is calling the whole situation unidentified terrorist attacks happening across Seoul and beyond. They promise to mobilize all available resources and regain control. For a brief moment, people actually relax a little. Like, okay, the adults are handling it. Then the questions start. Where's the president? Why isn't he speaking? Some people speculate that the terrorists already got to him. Others dismiss it as typical online nonsense. Dokja, meanwhile, just feels tired. The speech matches the novel almost word for word, but hearing this labeled as terrorism while standing in a blood-soaked subway feels absurd. Still, he knows denial isn't going to save anyone. And right on cue, reality reminds everyone of that. There's a sudden, horrible crack. On every screen, the Prime Minister's head literally bursts open mid-broadcast, blood everywhere. The feed cuts out instantly. Screams erupt. Whatever calm existed is completely obliterated. The dokebi reappears like it's been waiting for its cue. It surveys the screaming crowd with visible annoyance and reiterates that this is not a joke and not terrorism. It mocks them for not taking things seriously and, with the enthusiasm of a bored game master, says maybe the difficulty should be increased to 5. A screen appears, a timer, and then it gets worse. The remaining time has been drastically shortened. A system message pops up explaining that there are 10 minutes left, and if no one dies in the next 5 minutes, everyone in the cabin will be terminated, collectively. At that point, all logic collapses. People lose it. Some scream at Hyun-sung, begging him to take control. Others curse the police, the government, anyone who isn't there. Hyun-sung tries to shout over the noise, telling everyone to calm down and follow his instructions, but it's like yelling into a hurricane. Dokja watches all of this with a hollow feeling in his chest. Everything is playing out exactly like 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, except it's not. Hyun-sung is here too early. That's wrong. And if that is wrong, then something or someone is missing. Someone who should have appeared by now. Dokja's thoughts latch onto that missing piece, right before everything is about to get even worse. Out of nowhere, loud crashes come from the next subway cabin, followed immediately by blood splattering against the door between the cars. People start screaming because someone just got murdered right next to them. Instinct kicks in and everyone rushes the door. Trying to barricade it like that will help. One guy steps up, brave, for about half a second and tries to secure it. Big mistake. He hits an invisible barrier and gets blasted back by what looks like straight up electricity. Sparks fly, he goes down, and now everyone's even more confused. Right on cue, a system message pops up saying no one is allowed to enter or leave the cabin until the scenario is cleared. Translation, you're locked in, deal with it. The dokebi, clearly having the time of its life, mocks everyone for freezing up. Apparently some cabins are boring, so it decides to motivate them. With a snap, a massive screen appears in midair. The screen shows a high school classroom. Someone recognizes it and whispers that it's Taipeng Girls' high school. Inside, students are panicking, crying, completely terrified. Then, a system announcement declares that the time limit has expired and the checkout process has begun, which is apparently monster speak for execution. One by one, the students' heads start bursting open. Blood everywhere. Screams echo through the subway car. Dokja tries closing his eyes, but that doesn't help, because the sounds alone are nightmare fuel. When he looks again, it somehow gets worse. One girl, shaking and clearly breaking, grabs another student by the neck. The victim struggles, but the grip tightens until she collapses. Silence. Then the system announces the survivor, Ginny Lee, second year, Class B. The Dokja laughs like it just watched premium content. Everyone in the cabin is horrified. Dokja is horrified too, but also deeply unsettled for a different reason. What he's seeing matches 3 ways to survive the apocalypse, except not exactly. Scenes are overlapping. Events are happening out of order. Key characters are missing. The story he knows is unfolding wrong. So naturally, he reaches for his phone. If he can reread the novel, maybe he can figure out what's off. Except it's gone. The novel has been completely removed, which is absurd because it was never popular enough to warrant this level of cleanup. That's when Dokja remembers the message from the author and checks it again, and there it is, an attachment titled Apocalypse Text. His heart jumps. Is this the gift? Is this piracy? Does it matter if the author sent it themselves? At this point, legality feels like a side quest. He opens the file. Immediately, system messages flood his vision. He's received an exclusive tribute and unlocked a skill slot. Now, things are clicking. In TWSA, every survivor gets an attribute and a skill tied to it. Basically, the universe runs on RPG logic now. Dokja tries to open his attribute window. Denied. Tries again. Still denied. Panic sets in, because not knowing your attribute in an apocalypse is not ideal. With no other option, he starts reading the attached file. The moment he does, another system message appears. Attribute activated. A strange sensation rushes through him, like his brain just got upgraded. He realizes his attribute is tied to reading. Specifically, reading fast. Absurdly fast. In under a minute, he rereads the opening chapter of 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. His mind absorbs everything. Details, foreshadowing, things he'd forgotten years ago. His eyes even glow faintly, because of course they do. And suddenly, everything makes sense. The reason things feel off is because Dokja isn't in the protagonist's cabin. In the novel, the main character starts in cabin 3807. Dokja is in cabin 3707, the one in front of it. That means the chaos they heard earlier was the protagonist's story starting without him. And that realization is terrifying, because Dokja knows exactly what happens in cabin 3807. And it's bad, really bad. Sangha suggests they should help the people behind them, but Dokja knows the truth. From what he remembers, it's already too late. Whatever happened back there has likely already sealed their fate. Before he can dwell on it, reality slams back in. A man named Namun, clearly running on pure rage and zero restraint, suddenly grabs an older woman by the collar. She cries and begs, but he doesn't hesitate. He strikes her violently, blood splattering across the cabin. He shouts over everyone, asserting control, like this is his personal arena now. And that's when it becomes painfully clear. The real danger isn't just monsters or scenarios. It's people, once the rules say killing is allowed. Up until now, Dokja's mind is weirdly calm, detached. He's already run the numbers in his head. Out of everyone in this cabin, only 2 people are supposed to make it out alive. And here's the really brutal part. Neither he nor Sangha are meant to be among them. Sangha, all her kindness and competence, is doomed according to the story. Dokja knows this. He doesn't like it, but knowledge doesn't care about feelings. Then Han Myung-go, older guy, finance type, steps in and grabs Namun's arm, demanding he stop. It's basically a last attempt at normal human decency. Namwoon just laughs at him, straight up mocks him for not getting it yet. He points at the screen, still showing the massacre in the other cabin, where screaming and dying have basically become background noise. Namwoon spells it out. The army isn't coming. No one's saving them. The rules are simple. Someone has to die for the rest to live. Han is visibly shaken because he's still trying to process this like a human being instead of a feral survivalist. Namwoon, meanwhile, has already crossed that line. He plants himself in the center of the cabin and starts giving a speech about the new rules of the world. According to him, morality is obsolete, choice is an illusion, and survival is all that matters now. And then he backs it up with his fists. He starts beating someone without hesitation. No buildup, no remorse, just raw violence. Dokja watches this and feels sick, but not surprised. In 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, Namwoon is exactly this guy. One of the first people to fully embrace the apocalypse logic. The one who smashes the last fragile idea of we're still civilized. And unfortunately, he's persuasive. A few people, driven by fear and desperation, start siding with him. Others just stand there, frozen, watching like they're afraid that blinking wrong will put them next on the list. The cabin turns, suffocating, like the air itself is pressing down. Dokja's mind flashes back to the novel. He knows the timer is still ticking. If no one dies within 5 minutes, everyone dies. No exceptions. He remembers an old comparison from somewhere. Executioners all pulling a lever at the same time so no one knows whose hand actually killed the prisoner. Shared guilt, diluted responsibility. That's exactly what's happening here. And then it happens. The elderly woman, the one with no name, no power, no allies, becomes the chosen sacrifice. Seeing it feels like getting punched in the chest. Dokja knows, logically, that her death keeps the story on track. And if the story stays on track, he survives a little longer. But standing there while she's beaten, letting it happen on purpose, that weight hits hard. Beside him, Sangha cries out. She's horrified and immediately tries to step forward, because of course she does. She's still operating under help people rules. Dokja grabs her and stops her. Hard, not cruelly, but urgently. He knows if she jumps in, she won't stop at words, and that would get her killed instantly. She hesitates, torn between doing what feels right and listening to him. Her hands shake. Her face says she hates this, but she trusts him, barely, and stays back. Dokja looks at her and thinks, not for the first time, that she really would be the heroine in any normal story. Brave, compassionate, driven. Unfortunately, this story doesn't reward that. This isn't her narrative. He asks her to trust him just once more. She nods, reluctantly. And that's when we find out why Dokja's been holding back. He wasn't frozen, he wasn't scared, he was waiting. Suddenly, he moves, and I mean moves. He launches himself forward so fast, it literally leaves a trail of smoke behind him. People blink and go, wait, what was that? Before he slams straight into the group surrounding the old woman. The impact sends Namwoon flying across the floor like a bowling pin. Namwoon crashes hard, skids, and scrambles back up, absolutely furious, shouting like he's about to explode. Dokja doesn't even look at him. The crowd hesitates. Some people shout to keep going, to finish it, because desperation is louder than reason now. To most of them, it looks like Dokja jumped in to save the old woman. That is only partially true. Dokja is already scanning the cabin, eyes sharp, looking for something specific. And then he spots it. A young boy standing off to the side, silent, gripping a box tightly like it's the only thing keeping him grounded. Dokja walks straight up to the kid, reaches into the box without asking, and takes what's inside. This is not a random choice. This is a calculated one. Behind him, the old woman is still being beaten, her cries cutting through the air. Dokja turns back to the crowd and shouts. His voice is sharp, steady, and loud enough to slice through the chaos. Everyone stops. He challenges them, really challenges them. He asks if they truly think killing her will save them. What happens after that? What then? Because if the Dokhebi's rules are real, and they are, This isn't a one-time payment. It's not one death total. It's one death per person. So this is where Namun really commits to being that guy. Dokja finishes explaining the loophole, and Namun just laughs, full-on villain grin. He basically says, cool speech, but you're probably next. And the crowd kind of murmurs along because fear loves a confident sociopath. Dokja isn't shocked at all. This is exactly how Namun thinks. But Dokja isn't trying to out-crazy him. His goal is simple: survive without turning into a feral murder enthusiast. So Dokja calmly pulls everyone's attention back and does the most reader-brained thing imaginable. He rereads the rules out loud. The scenario never said they had to kill people. It said they had to kill one or more living organisms. And then he holds up an insect. The realization hits the cabin like a Windows shutdown sound. Everyone just freezes for half a second before it clicks. Bugs. Insects. The answer was literally crawling around the whole time. Instantly, the vibe shifts from we're about to commit a group homicide to I need to find a bug right now or I'm dead. The crowd surges toward Dokja, not to kill him, but because that tiny insect is suddenly worth more than gold. The unity is honestly alarming, but at least it's not blood-soaked anymore. Dokja's heart is pounding, adrenaline through the roof, and here's the wild part. He realizes he's smiling, like genuinely smiling. That thought alone unsettles him a bit. He has a brief, wow, am I unwell moment. Before the mob can dogpile him, he crushes the insect in his hand and tosses the box of remaining bugs into the air. The lid pops open, insects scattering everywhere like survival-themed confetti. System message pops up. First kill confirmed. Reward 100 coins. Dokja checks the timer. 3 minutes left. Absolute chaos erupts. People are screaming, swatting the air, diving on the floor, yelling in victory when they catch something, cursing Dokja when they miss. It's less apocalypse, more discount Black Friday, but with bugs. Namun, meanwhile, is not impressed. He turns back to Dokja and questions what he just did. Dokja points out, very calmly, that there were only so many insects in the box. Which means, yeah, not everyone is making it. Namun bursts out laughing like this is the funniest thing he's heard all day. He accuses Dokja of throwing the box not to save people, but because he wanted to enjoy watching them panic. And to be fair, Namun's half right. Dokja knows exactly what kind of person Namun is. A chaos enjoyer. Someone who thrives when everything falls apart. Dangerous? Absolutely, but also incredibly predictable. While Dokja is processing that, a system message interrupts him. His character profile skill activates. Suddenly, he can see Namun, not metaphorically. Literally, information flooding in. And it confirms what Dokja already suspected. Namun isn't like most people who break under apocalypse pressure. A lot of edgy, doom-obsessed kids fantasize about dark worlds, but completely collapse when it actually happens. Some don't survive their own minds. Namun has been waiting for this. This world fits him perfectly. He adapts fast, embraces the rules, and leans into the madness. No wonder he'll eventually earn the nickname Delusional Demon. He's delusional, yes, but capable enough to be terrifying. For a split second, Dokja considers it. Teaming up with Namun would massively increase his survival odds, at least short term. But Dokja isn't just another character scrambling in the dark. He's read the whole story. He knows exactly how much destruction Namun brings with him. So when Namun presses the idea, Dokja refuses. He works better alone. Namun's hand lands on Dokja's shoulder. Not aggressive yet, but definitely a warning. Then his attention shifts back to the elderly woman. He raises his hand to strike her again. Bad move. Dokja intercepts the hit midair. Namun sneers and starts mocking him, calling him a wannabe hero, accusing him of having some moral delusion. It's that smug, condescending arrogance Dokja hated when he read the novel, the kind of guy who thinks impulsiveness equals strength. A system message pops up helpfully. Namun despises you. Your affinity with Namun has slightly increased, which is deeply unhelpful. Namun tells Dokja to move. Dokja doesn't. Namun snaps and throws a punch, fast and vicious. Dokja dodges easily. That seems to amuse Namun. He grins, impressed, and swings again. Dokja blocks it cleanly. Now Dokja really starts watching him. The movement, the aggression, the raw, edgy energy. It clicks. This is Namun's edgelord attribute manifesting, just like in the novel. And then Namun escalates. His skill, Grimdark Awakening, activates, and suddenly his next attack hits with way more power. Dokja dodges again, but the punch slams into the floor hard enough to make the impact feel dangerous. Namun looks thrilled, absolutely delighted with himself. This is why, in the original story, even the protagonist briefly considered recruiting him pure power with 0 breaks. Dokja's mind races. Should he use one of his skills now? Before he decides, the system answers for him. You have unlocked level 1 of your personal skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. The name alone makes Dokja pause. Omniscient Reader. In a world that has stopped being fiction. And just like that, he realizes things are about to change again. While everyone else is still crawling around like their lives depend on catching a bug, because they absolutely do, their attention suddenly snaps to Dokja and Namun fighting in the middle of the cabin. Namun completely abandons subtlety. He starts swinging like he's in a street fight montage, fists flying from every angle, getting sloppier by the second as frustration takes over. He really wants to land just 1 hit. The problem is none of them connect, not even close. Dokja, meanwhile, is weirdly calm about the whole thing. He activates Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, and suddenly it's like Namun's attacks come with subtitles. The system straight up tells him where the next hit is going to land. Right shoulder, sidestep. Face, step back. It's less a fight and more Dokja calmly declining every punch. From the outside, it looks like Dokja is reading Namun's mind. Namun is getting visibly angrier, flailing harder, while Dokja just doesn't get hit at all. That said, Dokja knows his limits. The skill lets him dodge, not overpower. He can't win by brute force. He just needs to stall, hold out, let the clock do the work. Then Namun's eyes shift. Dokja immediately clocks it. The old woman. If she dies, Namun clears the scenario and moves on. And that is a nightmare waiting to happen. Namun surviving into the next stage is basically the apocalypse getting downloadable content. So Dokja bolts toward her. Namun sees it coming and smirks. This isn't just fists anymore. It's chess. And Namun decides to change the rules. He pulls out a knife. Like that's just the natural next step. The system warns Dokja again. Knife incoming. He dodges, barely. The blade scrapes his shoulder, and the pain is immediate and nasty. Burning, sharp, very real. Blood starts dripping, but Dokja grits his teeth and keeps moving. This is no longer theoretical danger. Death is right there, breathing down his neck. And Dokja realizes something uncomfortable but true. This world didn't suddenly become cruel. It always was. The apocalypse just ripped the mask off. Strong survive, weak don't. That's the rule. Now it's just honest about it. Namun starts trash talking, totally convinced he's already won. Dokja looks exhausted, hurt, slower. Except Dokja's brain is still sprinting. He remembers the system wording. He asks Namun a question that sounds pointless. Namun doesn't get it, but Dokja does. He clenches his fist. Inside his hand, an insect egg cracks. Instant system notifications explode across his vision. Kill confirmed. Living organism eliminated. Namun's face twists from confusion to rage. He charges for a final strike. Knife aimed straight at Dokja's chest. And then, more system messages. Coins. Options. Tutorial. Dokja skips the tutorial like someone who knows exactly how bad the timing is and dumps 2,700 coins straight into stamina. The change is immediate. Power floods his body. Strength. Endurance. Durability. The knife hits his chest and stops. It doesn't pierce, it doesn't break through, it just fails. Namun freezes. His confidence collapses in real time. He stammers, trying to understand what just happened, but Dokja's already past explanations. His expression goes cold, calm, final. The timer keeps ticking. Namun panics. He starts slashing wildly. Desperation replacing arrogance. Every strike bounces off. Nothing works. His bravado evaporates completely, and he drops to his knees, begging, pleading, promising anything, saying whatever he thinks might save him. It doesn't. This world doesn't care about mercy. The timer hits 0. What happens next is fast, brutal, and unavoidable. A scream cuts through the cabin. Blood sprays. Namun's story ends right there. Loud, violent, and permanent. The system announces that the main scenario, prove your value, has concluded. The Dokja reappears, sounding annoyingly pleased as it surveys the aftermath. The cabin is destroyed, blood everywhere, bodies scattered like the aftermath of a very cursed team-building exercise. Out of everyone who started, only 5 people are still standing. After everything finally quieted down, Dokja's mind keeps drifting back to Namun's last moments. The begging, the things he said that were, annoyingly, not entirely wrong. Dokja realizes there was a resemblance between them, and that thought sits heavy. He doesn't pretend he feels innocent. He knows what he did, and he knows what it cost. But weirdly, there's also this calm, like he's still just a reader flipping pages, instead of a guy standing in a blood-soaked train, watching, analyzing, emotionally buffering himself from reality. Then the train lurches and starts moving. Immediate relief spreads through the survivors, especially Han Myung-go, who desperately wants to believe this is all over and normal life is about to resume. That hope lasts exactly until they look out the windows. Outside, the city is completely unrecognizable. Giant snakes, absurdly giant, are ripping through the ruins, roaring and twisting through what used to be Seoul. No one says anything. It's obvious now. The old world didn't survive the night. The train eventually screeches to a stop on an abandoned bridge, which somehow makes things worse. Hanging over the bridge is a massive serpent-like monster, casually looming like it owns the place. Dokja recognizes it instantly, an ichthyosaur, later classified as a grade 7 monster. Everyone inside the cabin is barely breathing. Dokja, though, stays calm. He remembers the rules. Monsters don't attack unless they're part of an active scenario. For now, they're safe. For now is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. That's when Dokja notices the stars, literal glowing stars in his vision. 21 of them. Each one is a constellation, cosmic beings watching everything unfold like it's a reality show. That's a lot for a newbie Dokaibi channel. These things aren't just observers. They influence outcomes, reward behavior, and pick favorites. Dokja knows his earlier actions, probably upset some of them, Namun's death especially. But others are clearly interested. He can't help but smirk a little. If they think he's entertaining now, they have no idea what's coming. A freezing wind blows through the train, snapping him out of his thoughts. Sangha approaches him, clearly shaken but still standing. Dokja apologizes for not being able to save the elderly woman. Sangha hesitates, then thanks him for throwing the insect cage toward her earlier, admitting she knows that move was risky. Dokja brushes it off. Gratitude doesn't sit right with him. He knows he didn't act out of pure selflessness. He made choices, calculated ones, and people suffered because of them. To him, being thanked feels almost wrong. The Dokja pops back in, absolutely thrilled. It praises the carnage, thanks the constellations for their sponsorship, and brags about the attention its channel is getting. Dokja quietly counts the survivors. 5. More than he expected. Hyunsung's survival isn't surprising, built like a tank, trained, disciplined. Gilyang Lee, the small boy, is still there too. Dokja remembers handing him an insect earlier and asking if he wanted to live. The nod they shared wasn't kindness, it was mutual self-interest. Dokja admits that freely. Teaming up increases survival odds. Shame doesn't matter anymore. Han Myung-go is still alive too, which honestly feels like pure luck. Dokja briefly wonders why a rich guy like him was even riding the subway, but shelves that thought for later. Bigger problems exist. The Dokja then drops the next bomb, sponsorship eligibility. It calls them bugs, who somehow prove their worth, and announces that constellations may now sponsor them. No one else really understands what that means. Dokja does, and it's not exactly comforting. The Dokja explains that in their current state, even something pathetic like a ground rat could kill them. But higher beings, constellations, can grant power. In exchange, they get entertainment. Simple, gross, effective. Hyunsung looks completely lost, but the dokebi waves off questions and says experience will teach them faster than explanations. Then, message boxes appear in front of each survivor, announcing the start of sponsor selection. Dokja checks his own box. 4 constellations are interested. No surprise there. Sangha suddenly gasps. She has 2 options, which is rare for a beginner. Dokja isn't shocked. She's always had that quiet luck. Pretending not to know much, he tells her to treat it like an aptitude test. Inside, he knows exactly how important this moment is. Sponsorships define everything going forward. He focuses on his own choices. First, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon. Massive early game power boost. Incredible strength also drives you insane if overused, turning you into a murder machine. Hard pass for now. Second, Uriel, an archangel of fire and absolute good. Extremely powerful, extremely righteous, extremely restrictive. Dokja hesitates. Too many rules is a problem in a world that thrives on moral gray zones. Third, the secretive plotter. This one makes him pause. He's read the novel cover to cover, and this name shouldn't be here. It wasn't clearly introduced before. That alone makes it dangerous and tempting. He sets it aside. Fourth, the prisoner of the golden headband. That title alone screams trouble. Dokja immediately recognizes it. Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, heaven's equal, a walking apocalypse with a stick. In the novel, someone sponsored by him became borderline unstoppable. The fact that someone like that is watching Dokja is unsettling. He stares at the option, genuinely wondering why a being like Sun Wukong would even notice him, and more importantly, whether he could survive wielding power like that. After the sponsor selection wrapped up, a system notification popped up, locking everyone's choices. The Dokkaebi, as usual, was smugly watching everyone, clearly entertained by the chaos. It even teased that one choice was particularly special, probably to make Dokja feel good about himself, and then, in classic villain fashion, announced a short break before the next scenario. It vanished with a grin, promising to be back in 10 minutes, leaving the survivors awkwardly staring at each other, wondering what now. Dokja, being the calm center of chaos he is, immediately took charge. He addressed the group like a seasoned strategist, giving them some direction while the others were still fumbling through shock and disbelief. That's when Lee Hyunsung approached him. The guy introduced himself properly, handshake firm, background in the army, basically built like a human tank, perfect for early stage survival. Dokja instantly knew that having him on board could tip the odds in their favor. Hyunsung even acknowledged that without Dokja stepping in earlier, they'd likely be broken, either dead or morally ruined. Just as things were settling, Han Myung-go, loud, overly confident, and clearly not getting the memo that the world had gone completely sideways, grabbed Dokja's shoulder, insisting on respect and hierarchy like nothing had changed. Dokja, predictably, shut that down immediately. He pointed out the absurdity of clinging to old work norms or Mino-soft titles when survival was the only real currency now. Han's jaw nearly hit the floor. Dokja then turned to the rest of the group, giving them the cold, hard truth. The Dokkaebi's warnings were real. The game-like interface wasn't a joke. Skills and attributes weren't fantasy. They were survival tools. Hyunsung admitted it all felt eerily familiar, like the novels he used to read during night shifts. But Dokja's grim confirmation made him realize this was reality. Relief mixed with fear. He finally asked what to do next, and Dokja's answer was simple. Get out of the cabin, now. Cue the panic. Everyone froze at the suggestion. Fear of the unknown is a hell of a thing. And even Hyunsung hesitated, worried about leaving the relative safety of the cabin or checking on his unit. But before anyone could debate further, the door started getting slammed repeatedly. The sound was unnerving, the timing off, too soon for the next scenario. Dokja instantly realized this was the survivor from the adjacent cabin, 3707, the real protagonist of the story. The guy on the other side had slaughtered everyone in his cabin. Meeting him now was probably a death sentence. Dokja had no time to argue. He reiterated the urgency. They had to move or die. The survivors scrambled to find another exit, but every door they tried was broken. Sangha found a tiny gap in one door, a possible escape. Dokja immediately saw the opportunity, despite Hyunsung's caution about the door's condition. Dokja resisted the urge to spend coins to brute force it, knowing that would be reckless at this stage. Instead, he called on Hyunsung's skill. At first, Hyunsung was unsure how to activate it, but Dokja guided him, explaining that concentration and visualization were enough. And then, Great Mountain Push. Activated. Hyunsung unleashed raw, palpable strength, the door creaking and bending under his effort. Dokja watched, noting that even though Hyunsung was simple in nature, his skill fit the moment perfectly. But just when they thought they were clear, the train scenario continued to throw them curveballs. The steel door separating them from 3,707 while under attack from the other side was not the main threat anymore. Dokja yelled for everyone to run, and they bolted out of the train, adrenaline pumping. That's when the Dokaibi reappeared, clearly annoyed they hadn't waited. It scolded them for ignoring orders, and Han even tried to use it as a way to feel vindicated, but the Dokaibi just sighed and declared that they were lucky to get an early challenge. Almost immediately, a system message popped up with their next mission: cross the collapsed bridge and reach Oksu Station within 20 minutes. Dokja wasn't surprised. Everything lined up exactly with what he had read in the novels. He didn't waste a second, sprinting toward the bridge and urging the others to follow. Sangha, ever cautious, pointed out that the bridge looked fine, but Dokja knew better. Its collapse was inevitable. They were just ahead of schedule because of their early exit from the train. As they neared the bridge, Han suddenly yells that the water beneath is stirring violently. A massive whirlpool churns, and with a thunderous splash, a gigantic sea serpent bursts forth. Its scales shimmer darkly, its size colossal. Dokja recognized it instantly as an ichthyosaur, but judging by its sheer scale, this was not a typical monster. This was probably a sea commander, the kind that could eat a train for breakfast. The beast roars, clearly intending to block their path. Dokja thinks fast. The creature isn't here to chase them just yet. Its real goal is to destroy the bridge. With about 200 yards to safety, Dokja shouts for everyone to run like their lives depend on it, because they do. He calculates the odds and knows they have just enough time to sprint across before the bridge turns into a watery grave. Adrenaline spikes. Chaos reigns. Survival comes down to pure math, timing, and a little bit of luck. And of course, Dokja being the guy who actually read the cheat codes for life. The group is sprinting across the bridge, lungs burning, adrenaline pumping, and just when it feels like they might catch a break, the Dokaibi pops back in. It's smug, grinning like a villain in a cartoon, and mocks them for thinking they would get a simple escape. With a snap of its fingers, everything goes sideways. The scenario ramps up from E rank to D rank, and the world around them becomes far more hostile. Black ether oozes from the ground, the air grows thick, and the corpses from the earlier massacre start rising, groaning, and shambling toward them like an undead marching band. Sangha turns back in horror as the sheer number of zombies hits her and the pounding of their footsteps feels like the soundtrack of doom. Meanwhile, Lee Hyunsung, clutching the kid, manages to reach Oksu Station safely, leaving Dokja, Sangha, and Han in the middle of what looks like a full-blown zombie outbreak. Things escalate even further when Dokja senses another looming threat. The sea serpent from before, the massive ichthyosaur, lunges at the bridge with enough force to make the entire structure groan and explode with debris everywhere. One strike and half the bridge is gone, leaving a gap so wide you could fit a dozen cars in it. Sangha rushes to check on Dokja, Han is still somehow upright, and the survivor math suddenly gets real. Hyunsung and Jilyoung made it across, but now Dokja's trio is stranded. Then, as if the universe couldn't leave them alone, a glowing bridge of light appears, a deus ex machina moved courtesy of Sangha's mysterious supporting constellation. The catch is brutal. It only supports an even number of people at a time. Odd numbers mean instant collapse. Dokja's mind races. Why couldn't he access her profile? Was Sangha hiding some advanced mental skill or a secret constellation? His curiosity is cut short by danger when a zombie fist nearly smacks him from behind. He spins to counter, and that's when it hits him. This isn't an ordinary zombie. This is Namun Kim, turned into a Tier 9 humanoid demon through black ether. Things just got real. Dokja tries to use omniscient reader's viewpoint to predict Namun's moves, but the skill fails. Apparently, even all-seeing powers have limits when facing someone empowered by black ether. Panic spikes. The bridge rules mean someone has to stay behind, and suddenly, Han starts acting strange. Without warning, he hoists Sangha onto his shoulders and sprints toward the bridge like a man possessed. Sangha screams Dokja's name, demanding to be let down, but Han doesn't stop. In seconds, he's gone, leaving Dokja stunned and alone. Dokja deduces Han's insane speed is likely from a stigma, but the system blocks he saw earlier on both Han and Sangha hit him with a terrifying realization. These two aren't from the original 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse story. Everything is running purely on system logic now, and his usual cheat codes are useless. Namun, now monstrous and roaring, charges again. Dokja lands a sharp elbow strike that staggers him slightly, but the fight is far from over. More black ether zombies close in, their hunger palpable. With the scenario timer ticking down and the bridge rules still in play, Dokja realizes he's running out of options fast. Then, a system notification appears. Miracle skill acquired. Bookmark. A completely new ability. It allows him to copy the combat skills of characters on his designated list. He barely has time to process that before Namun and the zombies surge forward again. Dokja activates his first bookmark. Instantly, blackening level 1 floods his body with power. His reflexes sharpen, his strength spikes. It feels like plugging directly into a high-level combat build. Knife in hand, he moves. One clean motion, Namun is cut down. Blood sprays. Namun collapses, even in his monstrous form, whimpering and saying he doesn't want to die. Dokja doesn't hesitate. He cuts through the remaining zombies with rapid, controlled strikes, each movement precise and efficient. When it's over, he's panting, exhausted, and barely holding himself upright. Then a deafening explosion shakes the bridge, freezing the remaining zombies mid-step. Dokja tightens his grip on the knife, heart pounding. From the shadows, a figure emerges. Not a zombie, not a system glitch, a human, or something close enough to be worse. The figure walks forward, parting the horde like they don't exist. Each step radiates authority and danger. A character profile floods Dokja's vision, dumping more information than he can process in a single breath. The tension is overwhelming. This isn't just another obstacle, it's a new player entering the board. And Dokja knows one thing for sure. In this game, losing isn't an option. Yu Jung-hyuk, aka the Regressor, shows up. This guy isn't just strong, he's terrifying on an existential level. Think of someone who's lived through the apocalypse countless times, shed all moral hesitation, and now walks in like the universe owes him respect. And of course, the first thing he does is grab Dokja by the throat like it's a casual handshake. Dokja's fingers claw at the bridge, his legs dangling, his lungs screaming for air, while Jung-hyuk's grip feels like cement. Everything around him blurs, and his mind instantly clicks. This is no random encounter. This is the man who reshapes the world by sheer presence, the one whose appearance flips events into chaos just by existing. From there, it becomes a masterclass in tension. Jung-hyuk isn't here to chat. He's here to dominate. Every punch, every shove, every bone-rattling impact reminds Dokja how completely outmatched he is. And yet, despite the physical gap, Dokja keeps his mind razor sharp. He lies, he misdirects, he presents himself as a fan who works at a gaming company, half-truths, calculated deception. Somehow, it buys him a brief pause. This is survival without brawn, relying instead on the precision of chess played on a battlefield, soaked in rubble and blood. The real turning point comes with the Eye of the Sage, Jung-hyuk's SS grade skill that sees everything, including hidden abilities. Normally, this would mean instant death for Dokja, but thanks to his fourth wall skill, the attack is blocked. Jung-hyuk freezes, genuinely shocked. For a fraction of a second, the balance shifts. Dokja realizes how absurdly potent this combination is. Bookmark copies abilities. Fourth wall counters omniscient perception. Together, they form something broken. He's basically stumbled onto the cheat codes of the apocalypse. But cheat codes come with consequences. Jung-hyuk immediately recalculates. Dokja isn't ordinary. He's too calm, too deliberate. And most importantly, he disrupted the expected timeline by killing Namwoon and surviving the subway scenario, which leaves only one question burning in Jung-hyuk's mind. Who the hell is this guy? Now Dokja has 5 minutes to sell himself as indispensable. He leans into strategy, pointing out that clearing future scenarios alone is impossible, emphasizing his knowledge of the world, the disasters to come, and the brutal reality of Scenario 46. Jung-hyuk, ever the skeptic, wonders if Dokja is another regressor, but Dokja dodges the trap cleanly. The focus is not identity, it's usefulness. If Jung-hyuk wants to survive and win, he needs Dokja. Just when Dokja thought he caught a small break by getting Jung-hyuk to consider him an ally, the universe reminds him it isn't done playing cruel. A system notification pops up. Jung-hyuk has activated his lie detection skill, and of course, it confirms that Dokja isn't lying. Jung-hyuk's mind immediately goes into overdrive. He's seeing the impossible. There might be another prophet beyond the known, Anna Croft. In the world of 3 ways to survive the apocalypse, prophets are unicorn-level rare and insanely powerful, the kind of people who can neutralize detection skills and peek into the future. Jung-hyuk knows only one had existed before. So the idea that Dokja could fill this role completely blows his mind. Dokja plays it perfectly, confirming just enough to intrigue the regressor without giving away everything, making it clear he has some vision of the immediate future. He reminds Jung-hyuk that even regressors, with all their repeated lives, still have flawed knowledge. Deviations in the present mean they can still be blindsided. In short, Dokja sells himself as a human cheat sheet, someone whose foresight and encyclopedic knowledge of TWSA's thousands of chapters makes him invaluable. Jung-hyuk weighs the risk versus the reward. A prophet-level ally isn't just useful for the current scenario, it's priceless for the disasters ahead, including facing the notorious Zarathustra. Trust, however, is another matter entirely. With the scenario timer ticking down to 40 seconds, Jung-hyuk makes his choice. Dokja is officially his companion, albeit dragged along by the throat like luggage on an extremely unpleasant ride. Below them, the Deus Ex Machina bridge of even numbers looms, a fragile miracle that only supports 2, 4, 6, and so on. Because nothing in this world is ever simple. Zombies close in. The water below churns ominously. Dokja struggles to keep up with someone whose grip could double as industrial machinery. Any sense of relief is short-lived. Just as Dokja thinks the alliance is secured, Jung-hyuk stops abruptly, tightens his grip, and demands proof. Dokja is now dangling over the open maw of a sea serpent, trying very hard not to become lunch, while Jung-hyuk's gaze drills into him with lethal intensity. Dokja has a moment of clarity. Jung-hyuk isn't logical. He's a storm of unpredictability, and fairness has never been part of his operating system. Summoning every ounce of courage he has left, Dokja steadies himself and stakes a claim to mutual respect, promising cooperation only if it goes both ways. This finally grabs Jung-hyuk's attention. For a brief moment, the regressor wavers between suspicion and interest. The agreement is fragile, tense, and absurdly dangerous. Then the universe reminds them both who's really in charge. The sea serpent surges upward, jaws wide, a living execution waiting to snap shut. The system's cold message flashes across Dokja's vision. Scenario failed. Underwater, clutching air like it was currency, he forced himself to survive. He pushed through the suffocating water, climbed onto a floating slab amid a grim graveyard of corpses and cars, and realized he wasn't dead yet. Not that the scenario had any mercy, but for Dokja, surviving a sea serpent's digestive tract was just another Tuesday. Amid the carnage, he reflected on Jung-hyuk. The regressor's tests were brutal, but he understood the logic. Jung-hyuk had learned from failure, and people were either tools or threats. Dokja had passed the first part by showing he wasn't just a passive survivor. He could think, calculate, and hold his own under insane pressure. But the system wasn't done tossing curveballs. A harsh notification appeared, 100 coins deducted for failing the scenario, because apparently, even apocalypse survival has a channel fee. Predictably, some constellations were impressed. The prisoner of the golden headband rewarded him with coins for boldness, while the secretive plotter clearly disapproved of his audacity. And as if that wasn't enough, the sea serpent wasn't resting. It started moving again, the timer on its stomach acid ticking down like a bomb. Enter the Dokja, Bi-hyung, returning for some mid-apocalypse entertainment. Dokja, surprisingly composed, treated Bi-hyung's gloating like an overzealous streamer throwing shade. He deduced that if death were the penalty for failure, the Dokja wouldn't have bothered showing up in person. So he called the bluff. Calmly, he negotiated with raw logic and confidence, and Bi-hyung, previously all swagger and malice, visibly faltered. Dokja even casually reminded him of his struggling streaming career and the indifference of the constellations, prodding at Bi-hyung's fragile ego while remaining stone cold himself. The constellations watching leaned in further, curiosity sharpening with every move Dokja made. Even the notoriously secretive plotter showed interest, which was rare enough to matter. Dokja didn't waste the momentum. He suggested a private conversation, even as Bi-hyung streamed the entire spectacle. Reluctantly, the Dokja shut off the broadcast, and the balance of power shifted immediately. The creature, accustomed to controlling the narrative, was now forced to engage with a human who wasn't just surviving, but dissecting the system like a strategist. Bi-hyung demanded to know how Dokja understood Starstream, the galactic network linking constellations, humans, and Dokjis. Essentially a cosmic stage where humans perform and Dokjis narrate. Dokja ignored the question and moved straight to his real objective. He proposed a deal. Not a casual alliance, but a contract so ambitious it made even an immortal hesitate. A partnership that could elevate Bi-hyung beyond every other Dokja and put him on a path toward becoming Dokja king. He painted a picture of surpassing legendary figures, promising ambition and notoriety in a way that had Bi-hyung laughing one second and blinking the next, like it was trying to comprehend a new color. Naturally, Bi-hyung thought the idea was absurd, mocking the notion that a human could navigate the Starstream ecosystem without the backing of a constellation, especially after Dokja had explicitly refused any prior sponsorship. But this refusal, Dokja explained, wasn't foolish. It was the keystone of his strategy. By rejecting sponsorship, he had made himself unpredictable, a variable the constellations couldn't easily control. Dokja went further, breaking down Starstream's audience into two types: thrill seekers and incarnation hunters. A channel needed either explosive entertainment or exceptional incarnations to thrive. Bi-hyung, though mildly impressed by Dokja's insight, still scoffed at the idea of a human challenging the established hierarchy. Dokja didn't back down. He kept pressing, dissecting the system's mechanics like a chess grandmaster. Then he proposed a scenario so audacious, it left Bi-hyung silent for a heartbeat. What if an incarnation deliberately avoided choosing a supporting constellation, yet still outperformed everyone else? That single idea flipped Bi-hyung's expectations on their head. Dokja's earlier choices weren't mistakes. They were calculated moves designed to disrupt the system and prove that the regressor's dominance wasn't absolute. As Bi-hyung struggled with the implications, Dokja shifted toward immediate action. The sea serpent scenario was still active, and the rules were brutal: 5,100 coins as a penalty for failure. Dokja, however, remained calm, claiming the scenario had effectively already been cleared. He maneuvered Bi-hyung into reopening the Starstream channel, a critical step since it unlocked access to the cash shop, something normally restricted unless a channel was live. As Bi-hyung scrambled to placate constellations and manage the sudden spike in attention, Dokja seized the opening. With surgical precision, he scanned the shop for rare, high-value items: the ancient dragon, the archdemon's eyeball, the white star weapon aura. Bi-hyung's confusion deepened with every option Dokja reviewed, especially when Dokja ultimately selected 4 bags of mucus and 4 thorns, items that looked mundane but were clearly part of a larger plan only he could see. Notifications continued to flood in as constellations reacted. The secretive plotter showed growing interest, while the abyssal black flame dragon looked distinctly displeased. Channel BI 7623 temporarily went offline. Yet, Dokja remained unfazed, completely in control of the chaos he had engineered. Bi-hyung reminded him that no formal contract existed yet, but Dokja agreed to a provisional partnership, contingent on clearing the scenario. With that, Bi-hyung reopened the channel to the constellations and stepped back from constant supervision, leaving Dokja alone with the Sea Serpent, the Starstream shop, and a looming 10-day challenge to slay the Sea Commander Ishtiasaur. What could have been a total disaster had turned into a layered power play, enough to make even a god-level streamer pause and reassess who was actually running the show. Inside the Sea Serpent's stomach, conditions were rapidly deteriorating. The darkness pressed in, acidic fumes thickened the air, and every second felt like a countdown to the end. Dokja clung tightly to the thorns he had purchased, his only tools inside a living, pulsing nightmare. Above him, the serpent glided calmly over the burning city, a surreal contrast that made the laws of physics and biology feel optional. Then the creature began to thrash violently, clearly in pain, churning its own acidic insides like a massive washing machine. Dokja braced himself, driving the thorns into the soft inner walls to anchor his body as corrosive fluid splashed around him. Every breath sears, every movement strains him to the edge, but he refuses to let go. As exhaustion gnaws at him, Dokja reflects on how absurdly tiny he must seem from the outside. Just a human, a reader who normally observes instead of acts. Memories of his mother and her resilience flicker through his mind, giving him a strange mix of hope and resolve. This isn't just survival anymore, it's a personal test of grit and ingenuity. Then Bi-hyung makes his dramatic return, and suddenly all that preparation and strategy begin to pay off. Notifications light up Dokja's vision as constellations watching the scenario finally recognize the sheer cunning he's displayed. By the fourth day of this hidden scenario, he's completely worn down, fingers trembling on the thorns, body screaming at him to quit. But quitting simply isn't in Dokja's vocabulary. Eventually, with one final exhausted effort, he loses his grip and collapses, but not before the system confirms his success. He has hunted a Tier 7 sea monster, a feat no one else has accomplished, and earned 9,000 coins, plus an additional 1,000 for style. The constellations and Bi-hyung alike are stunned. Bi-hyung, in particular, struggles to process Dokja's creative use of the Stonehog's thorn. These thorns are normally just natural weapons for coastal predators, meant to pierce and dry smaller prey. Yet Dokja turned one into a life or death anchor and tool. Then there's the hammer seahorse mucus, which even Bi-hyung hadn't realized could function as a protective coating against the ichthyosaur's stomach acid. Dokja had smeared himself with it and then ingeniously funneled diluted stomach fluids through the thorn to stave off hunger, all while enduring excruciating pain. His explanation to Bi-hyung is blunt and practical, more like, here's what I did, deal with it. But Bi-hyung, grudgingly impressed, spins the story into an epic tale of endurance and ingenuity for the constellations. Just when it seems Dokja might finally get a moment to breathe, he pivots immediately to the next step. He demands access to Bi-hyung's shop, fully in control now, and doesn't wait for permission. With calculated precision, he drives the thorn back into the intestinal wall, cracking it open and exposing the glowing nucleus of the ichthyosaur. After extracting the nucleus, Dokja moves straight into strategy. His plan is to auction the rare, absurdly valuable item on the Bi-hyung auction house. He isn't asking for something ordinary. He requests a legendary item, the kind that makes even a Dokja hesitate. Bi-hyung is completely stunned. It cannot fathom how a human could know exactly what to request, let alone have the audacity to demand it. It questions whether such an item even exists. But Dokja doesn't flinch. While Bi-hyung is still processing that shock, Dokja smoothly transitions to his next purchase, only for the Dokja to interrupt with all the dramatics of a streamer pausing mid-broadcast, forcing a brief halt. When the broadcast resumes, Bi-hyung presents a formal contract. It admits initial hesitation, but after witnessing Dokja clear the hidden scenario, it is willing to cooperate. The contract looks promising at first, better than Dokja expected, but he quickly spots the biggest omission. There is no profit ratio. Bi-hyung tries to wave it off, insisting verbal agreements are enough since stream contracts are soul-bound. But Dokja refuses to gamble on vague trust. He demands proper terms. Flustered but eager to seal the deal, Bi-hyung offers a 50-50 split and waives channel fees. Dokja rejects it instantly. He isn't negotiating like a normal streamer. He knows that without a supporting constellation, all coin transactions flowing through Bi-hyung would still give the Dokkaebi an unnecessary cut. Dokja wants every coin for himself. Even when Bi-hyung tries to sweeten the deal to 70%, Dokja doesn't budge. He brings up Gildal's rising success, subtly implying he could take his talents elsewhere. Finally, Bi-hyung caves. Begrudgingly, it agrees to an 80% share and adds a 5,000 coin upfront contract fee. Meanwhile, the sea serpent lies defeated along the shore. Dokja emerges from the water, exhausted but victorious, breathing fresh air for the first time in 4 days. He reflects on the achievement. Jung-hyuk needed 4 days on his 4th regression to survive this scenario, and Dokja cleared it on his first attempt. That alone feels like a victory. Add a lucrative streaming contract and a massive pile of coins, and the former reader has transformed into a calculated powerhouse. The system confirms that his personal skill, the 4th wall, is still active, ensuring that no one can view his stats or abilities. When he attempts to open his attribute window, it remains blocked, leaving even Bi-hyung confused. This unexpected advantage turns Dokja into an invisible threat, a walking exploit no one can easily predict. With that settled, he moves toward the second main scenario, only to be met by a deadly, contaminated atmosphere. The air is thick and poisonous, each breath a struggle. He forces himself forward through underground shelters as toxic fog eats away at his strength. System warnings flash repeatedly, while the abyssal black flame dragon watches with cruel amusement. Despite the mounting pressure, Dokja keeps going. The environment, the fog, the constellations watching him, none of it stops him. This is no longer fiction. The novel is behind him. This is reality, and the game has only just begun. Dokja steels himself, fully aware that what lies ahead will be harsher, deadlier, and completely unforgiving. But he has already proven one thing: even the most impossible situations can be turned into victories. And that's where we leave Dokja for now. Still alive, still scheming, and almost certainly 5 steps ahead of everyone watching.